How's it going, everybody? I want to welcome you all to the second season of Trade Secrets by Tripletote. On this first episode, I'm excited to bring you guys a very special entrepreneur who has a very interesting story of how she started and built her real estate company. Her name is Shanyelle Young. Hi, Shanyelle.
Hi, Antoine. How are you?
Everything is good. I want to thank you, first of all, for being my first guest on the second season of Trade Secrets by Tripletote. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we're shooting this episode, one of the rarities, from her office. We're not doing it at my location. But if you guys were able to, I'll put some pictures up so you can see the rustic and the original look of this building. Is wood. There's wood floors. There's brick. It's just really nice. As you can see from the background, this is her office. I mean, she comes to a great location with a great view every single day. How long have you been in this building?
I've been here about 3 years now.
Wow. And how did you even come to have your office here?
Well, I started my own business, my own company, Young Realty Associates 3 years ago. Prior to that, I was in Windsor, working for another company, Gillette Real Estate. That's where I got started. But my husband had an insurance agency. In fact, his office is right next door.
Wow, that's awesome,
good
right?
and bad, all the time. But he opened his office here about 7 years ago now, and this space, which is adjacent to his, opened up, and I had just gotten my broker's license, and I said, I wasn't ready to make the leap, but it just happened, and it worked out. And I prayed. I said, God, if you want me to do this, give me 3 confirmations.
Wow.
And by the end of the week, I had 10 concrete confirmations from
great.
God. And I said, okay, not only am I opening up my own agency, but it's going to be right next door to my husband. So it's been wonderful, actually.
That's really good. And that's a blessing because in this age, obviously, when you say something like that, first thing that pops people has reality show. Like, what is going on? Like, is there business
some days
meetings?
it's a reality show around here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What I like is that you guys have created a family environment, and it's not just you two. You guys have employees.
Yeah, I have about 4 realtors. By 4 realtors, I have a couple of interns, and I have an assistant who comes in every now and then. And my husband has, I think, about 3 or 4 people working with him. So it gets a little crowded in here sometimes, but the blessing is very seldom we're all here together. So, wow. Yeah.
That's good. Now, you're here, Manchester, Connecticut, with a wonderful office. Again, you guys, I'll put pictures up. But you didn't grow up here. Where'd you actually grow up? I
actually grew up in Atlantic City, New Jersey. In very humble beginnings. I grew up, in a blue-collar family. My father was a construction worker. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. Then things went a little crazy. My parents divorced. And we winded up moving to low-income housing, which quickly became the hood. Yeah. So it was different. I loved everything about how I grew up, up until that point. And when I was about 12, 13 years old, my mother remarried, and I wound up moving to Newtown, Connecticut, more specifically Sandy Hook. So complete different environments. When I was in Atlantic City in another town called Pleasantville, I was really smart. I was 2 grades, I always tell this story, I was 2 grades ahead of my peers.
Wow.
So you could skip a grade, but because I was 2 grades ahead in terms of academics, I wound up going to a different class, and it was a regional class where they brought kids in who were really smart and gifted, and it was called Gifted and Talented. So, I was at the top. Fast forward, I moved to Newtown, Connecticut, and immediately I find out I'm 2 years behind in math and science, and probably a year behind in everything else.
Wow.
So that speaks to the disparagement in the school systems. So
that's very interesting.
Yeah, that was really shocking.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, just being familiar with that area, I mean, if you go see their high school, it's like
Newtown High?
Yeah, it's like a college. It's
It
like,
is. It's a very wealthy town.
Yeah.
It's in Fairfield County, which is one of the richest counties in the United States.
And of course, we don't forget the tragedy of Newtown and Sandy Hook.
Exactly.
We're not trying to downplay that at all.
No,
We
not at
understand
all.
that. And it's so crazy because as you told me your story, since that unfortunate tragedy happened, Sandy Hook has just a sharp effect when you think of that. Now, from Sandy Hook, did you go from grade school through high school all there in Newtown?
I went to high school only.
Okay.
So, yeah, I went to high school only. And I loved high school. I feel so blessed to have been a part of both worlds.
That's right.
Growing up in humble beginnings to all this affluence. And, it was a blessing. I love the people that I went to high school with. I was the only African American in my graduating class. But that was good.
Yeah.
And it just propelled me and prepared me, I should say, for life, because life is like that.
Don't you feel like because you had the combination of experience, like you understand the environment of the hoodest of hoods sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And then you understand the environment of a Fairfield County type situation for those areas, that doesn't it create an armor for you that you're not scared to interact or talk to anybody?
I feel very comfortable in so many social settings and professional settings, and that's just from growing up in two different worlds.
That's right.
So
that's
it's been
right.
a blessing.
That's the best, and I think that the young people have it. Have a good also in a very positive way because they're not afraid to interact with different types of people of races, sexual orientations, or anything now.
Right.
When we had lines, right? There were lines, and if you don't want to be misunderstood or cross the wrong line with the wrong crowd. But now, the great thing about the youth, they completely blur those lines and they just make it more free to do whatever you want to do.
Well, I have 3 millenniums, and I have 25-year-old twins and a 20-year-old. My daughter just got her master's, and my son is in chiropractic school, graduating in June.
Wow! Shout out to the kids.
Crazy, and my youngest is a finance major at UConn, and he just got a job at Goldman Sachs. I have to plug that because I'm very proud of him.
Jesus.
Proud of all of them.
That's some good parenting right there.
Well, that's God, because the kids have driven me crazy. But just getting back to them, their ages and what they're doing in life, they're just so accepting. They know where they stand and they know their beliefs, but they're just so accepting to everyone else. It's a little different than how we grew up.
Yeah, it's a little different. There were lines that if you didn't fit a certain mold.
Some things, so yeah.
That's pretty cool. So after high school, you went to college and you went to UConn.
Yeah.
How was that, that whole situation?
So that brought me back to my roots because I went to UConn in the very late 80s, early 90s, and that's when all the Spike Lee and all that was out. The fraternities and sororities were a big thing. And it was just a microcosm of the world that I would go into, which is very diverse, dealing with different people, really large state university, learned a lot, met my best friends ever. Wow. Just a lot of preparation for life.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, what did you major in at UConn?
Economics and sociology.
Wow, that's an interesting combination.
Yeah, well, sociology was easy, and my friend Eddie Woods, I'll just plug his name. He's like, "What are you gonna? You're not gonna make any money," which was false.
Obviously.
So just being a social worker. So he's like, "You've got to do something in business. You're like a born business person." So I said, "Okay, I'll do marketing economics." So I did both. So
that's awesome. So you did that, got your degree, and next thing you hit the world young with a degree in the right field. So you got the economic backing. What field did you go into from there?
Insurance, which most people graduating in the 80s and 90s coming out of UConn, because we have Hartford, which is, it was and still is sort of the insurance capital of the world.
That's right.
So I worked for Allstate Insurance, and it was good. I worked there 2 years. I was on a management track, and then I got pregnant with the twins, and I became a stay-at-home mom. So for
That's
7
good.
years, yeah.
7 years?
7 years.
That's great. So a lot of people, and I know I may be speaking for a generation even older than us, like, if you decided to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom, it was considered career suicide.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I was very young. I got married right out of college.
Okay.
And everyone was, some people was the school would thought, well, you're still young, you can do this. But back then, I mean, we're talking about 25 years ago, for a woman to try to go back into the work world after being home for 7 years, technology was moving so fast.
Yeah.
Companies were just regionalizing and downsizing. I mean, it would have been tough. So, and I knew that, but that was the choice I made. I really wanted to give my kids that foundation of having a stay-at-home mom.
That's right.
Or stay-at-home parent.
That's right.
So,
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting all the misnomers, right? Like, why is it a death wish? You know what I mean? Like, but it was considered. I remember that even now, you may still hear whispers of that. If a mom wants to say, "I want to stay home with my first child," or, I want to go on an extended leave, it's like, "Oh, you may not come back. You may not have a job when you come back." It's like,
probably won't.
That is nuts, right?
It is nuts. But like you said, there's a lot of misnomers, and you have to do what's best for you.
That's right.
And again, I come from a faith-based background. God compelled me to stay home, and I knew if He had me with that, He was going to get me something when I was ready to go back to work.
So when you did re-enter the workforce, was it hard, or did it flow for you?
I didn't enter into the workforce. I went into real estate. I didn't re-enter into the workforce. Right. I went into real estate. Okay. So that was even more challenging because I thought, I'm going to have this job where I can control my own schedule. It'll be a nice transition from being home to being, home when I needed to be.
Yeah.
And I quickly found out that real estate was really demanding. And I was blessed enough to do really well my first year, but it was very demanding. I was learning the craft. I was gone a lot. I thought my husband was going to divorce me. He was like, wait, where are you and why are you there? So, it was really difficult. And as I got more into the career and, just learn my craft, I was able to make that be what I wanted to be in terms of, okay, I can still be room mom for the kids. I can still be on the PTO. I can still manage their sports, but I'm literally working all around the clock. So, but that was okay.
Now, did you find your ability to do more than one thing? I don't want to say balance. I think that word is overused and I think it's misused. But your ability to accomplish the things you wanted to as a mom while building your real estate business, do you feel it was because you had regimented schedulings, or do you feel it was just your flow? Your flow allowed it, or did you actually plan out, like, I'm only able to do this at this time? Like, what was your method for keeping things going?
Well, I do try to plan. I'm somewhat of a planner. So yes, I mean, I had to, I think most moms have to plan their day, plan their weeks, plan their months, just to keep everything going in the household. But I'm also one that I'm not so regimented in my schedule because things evolve and you just can't, you got to be able to shift when things shift, as any person knows, either running a business, running a family, being in all the organizations that I care about. You just got to be able to just shift, and so both really. I take pride in controlling my day. Otherwise, my day controls me.
Understood.
So I try to start the day. I need to do this, and this. I prioritize my activities. This is my A. Whatever is on my A list has to be done today. B also. C, if I don't get to it, I'm okay.
Wow.
Do it tomorrow. But some days, you barely going to get through the end of the A's. So
yeah, no, certainly
okay
true.
With that, yeah.
It's so funny. It's like I had read a book. I didn't read the whole book, but I started a book, and the main thing it was saying is that every day do like you said, A-list, or do 3 things that you got to get done, and they got to get done. And to make sure they get done, you should try to get them done before noon.
Yes.
And then at the end of the day, assess how you did, and then make plans for the next day.
Yep.
And I think I did that for a little while, but for me, things, after I do them a dozen times, if I like it, it takes hold inside of me anyway, and I don't have to deliberately plan.
It becomes habit.
It just becomes habit for me. And I'm like, oh, this does work. It's crazy because you also begin to understand that everything that everybody else thinks important is not really important, and things move. Yep. That being said, when you got into real estate now, you didn't have your own company. Did you work? You worked for a real estate broker, right?
Right. I worked for Lynn Gillette, and her and Leslie Hammond, who's another realtor. She's actually a broker now too. They trained me, and they were the best. I mean, I learned from the best. Wow. Lynn Gillette now I think she's been in real estate for about, I want to say 40 years. Jeez. Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing. And she was a pioneer, and at a time where real estate was predominantly white male, and she came in as a woman, and she knocked it out the box. She had a huge brokerage in a time where there were no women brokers, and just was very proud and honored to train under her. I learned a lot from both her and Leslie.
Now, to step out on your own, was that a difficult decision, or was it easy because of the relationship you had with your broker and because of how well you had been trained? Was it easy to step out on your own?
It was fairly easy. As I said earlier, I had prayed for God to give me 3 confirmations. And as I said, he sent me 10 definitive, and I wrote them down. One of them was that Lynn Gillette would be okay with it. Because, when you leave a brokerage, it's usually very hard feelings. I mean,
understood.
It's personal. It's, the broker's losing money. When I called her, I could cry about it now. She actually was, I'm so proud of you. Wow. Spread your wings. You were born to do this. Wow. I mean, she really just gave me the encouragement. So I'm just really grateful to her. So no, it wasn't a hard transition at all. And I was not scared. People were like, oh my God, were you scared? Not at all. I felt very comfortable. I know I'd been doing this at that point for 15 years. And, I had another agent come with me, and who I trained at Gillette anyway. And she was on my team, so she just transitioned with me. And then I started getting other agents. And I've never had any regrets ever.
Wow.
I think, and I think as one thing I'm learning too, make a decision and go with it. Once you're convicted, go with it and don't look back. Yeah. And that's just, how I go with life.
That's powerful. I noticed just from knowing you for this brief period of time, and even now on the podcast, spirituality is an enormous part of your life. Yes. Right?
I can't make it through the day without God.
Yeah, and it's not just that it is an enormous part of your life. I know you're not thinking when you proclaim it naturally as you go. Yes. Conversations. You don't have to think. You don't preach. You're not preachy at all, but you'll just be like, oh, yeah. Oh,
that's my kids if I'm not preaching.
Right? So, but I just noticed when I meet other people, they have spiritualities, I'm sure. And sometimes I do understand. I come into contact with it from certain conversations or whatever, but every conversation I've had with you, that emanates. Not that you're pushing it, it just emanates. It's just like, oh, okay. Somebody might say, I'm going to think about that. You'll be like, I'm going to pray on that. Yeah. And you'll come back with the answer, and you're just done. Let's go.
God has given me so much faith, and I just trust him enormously. And, the other thing I shared with you off camera before is that I grew up under the Nation of Islam. I was a Muslim child growing up. So I'm really careful. I think being a Christian, that you don't have to push, you don't have to throw the Bible in people's faces. Understood. You don't have to be judgmental or critical. I'm just me.
That's right.
And you're just you. And guess what? I'm going to accept you, and I love you for who you are. You may not be like me. We may not have the same beliefs. We may not live the same lifestyle. But I'm going to love you no matter what, because, it's just, that's what God does.
And what's interesting is that the underlining thing that I just noticed in your story is that you grew up living in diverse living situations from A to Z, or from Atlantic City to Newtown, and then from there, college was a diverse situation for you at a time when diversity was breaking into Hollywood.
Yeah.
So you were doing that and understanding that. Your majors were both like, they would seem juxtaposed to each other if somebody just heard, but. And then as you grew in spirituality, it was the same thing. It was like, I come from this realm of spirituality growing up, and now I'm in here, and I still don't judge anybody. I accept anybody. I love anybody.
Exactly.
All people can't say that. That's huge, and that's really admirable.
Thank you,
relate to
Anton.
people.
Thank you for saying that. I didn't expect this to go in a spirituality
No, it's okay.
term,
It's okay.
but thank you for saying that, because that is a big part of me. You know, that's who I am, essentially.
And I'm sure it's a big part of your success.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard enough to make it in this world without God. I mean, with God.
Yeah.
I can't imagine not having that faith and that anchor, you know, to ground me every day and to guide my steps. So it has been tremendous. People are like, how did you do so well so quickly? It wasn't me.
Understood.
It was not me. It was God who was just raining down blessings.
Wow. Wow. Now, do you have, when it comes to doing real estate, this is like my last two questions, but when it comes to doing real estate, do you have a really ambitious, aggressive way of approaching it, or is it more just flow for you?
Well, it's both and. Real estate is, I would love to think that it's a flow, but it can be a flow some days, but it's just being on your hustle and grind every day.
Yeah.
This is a very self-motivated job.
Yeah.
You know, there's many days I want to be like, well, it's snowing out. Let me just sit home and watch my favorite shows, Wendy Williams. And So, but no, it's every day I'm on that grind and that hustle. And, you know, I've been blessed enough to start my business on a referral-based business.
Wow.
So, you know, I don't do cold calling. I don't do advertising. Basically, I hustle and try to do an awesome job for my clients so that when they know someone who's buying or selling, they will call me.
Yeah.
And that's how it's been set up. So, you know, as I tell my new agents, your day every day is not to close a sale or sell a house. Your day is to market yourself and get referrals, because that's how you're going to keep your business steady.
That's right.
You know, you have to plant for a harvest. You just have to plant seeds all the time so that the harvest is always there. You can't just work on a sale and that's it. No, every day the marketing piece and has to come in. That's like the main priority for me, is do the marketing, which is actively asking for referrals, doing customer service, customer appreciation events, really taking care of my customers. And listen, that has been easy because I have been blessed with the best clients. I mean, the best clients. Early on, my broker and, you know, different people who are more experienced, seasoned realtors used to say, don't get so close to your clients because, you know, you get to attack. I have never figured that out.
That's weird.
Yes, they're just like, you know, because a lot of people in sales are very transactional.
Yes.
You know, close the sale, keep it moving, go to the next sale.
Yeah.
My business, thankfully, has been built on relationships, and some of my clients have become my best friends.
That's great.
They become like family.
Yeah.
So, and I just, you know, and now it's to the point where I've sold them their houses, and their kids were like 10 and 11, and now their kids those same kids are buying houses now. I have like that with 2 clients right now, and it's like shocking. It's shocking because I'm older, but it's shocking that, you know, I've been able to maintain a relationship, which has been fairly easy because, like I said, most of my clients are just the best people ever. I don't know how I get the best clients. I don't know how, but I've been really blessed with that.
Well, I think the great thing about the way you approach life in general is that you're constantly looking to give first and to be helpful first.
Yeah.
And so it just makes it makes very practical sense that in return you get these blessings that come
It's a
constantly in flow.
Really.
Yeah,
And every day is not easy. I don't want to portray that. I'm just, every day is such a big blessing. No, there are days I'm like, okay, God, what's going on here? This summer, I had 4 deals fall apart, which probably was a monetary loss of about $22,000, maybe a little bit more. But I was like, okay, I'm 18 years in. This has never happened to me. What's going on here?
Gotcha.
So, there's times when, I just said, but you know what? But through the whole time, everything was fine. I just had to figure it out and keep it moving.
That's perfect.
And the other thing you said about giving, we do try. Our motto here is giving and living in abundance. One of the realtors said, she was so cute, she's like, we should just change it to living and giving in abundance. And I was like, why? She's like, it just flows better. I said, no. I said, we give first. And then the living in abundance is just a byproduct of that. We give first. I try to, people will bleed you dry, but I do try to give as much as I can. But you do have to have that balance of, giving of your time, giving of yourself. But then there's a time you got to pull back and say, I've got to take care of myself and my things as well.
And I think that's the good part of what you do and the good part of how you approach it, because you build relationships. So guess what? Since you have a real relationship with the person and they're your client, you can tell them bad news. Like you can tell any friend, like, look, I know you don't want to hear this, but they rejected your offer. But you can say it to them without feeling like they're going to run somewhere else, because you're built a real relationship with them where there's communication, there's ups and downs and transactions and everything.
And I think with that is the trust. We try to work. We work very hard for our clients, but we work on very integrous. We work with integrity and honesty. You'll never hear me say, "Oh, did this house flood?" "Oh, it's never flooded." "No, and it flooded yesterday, and we cleaned it up." We don't. That always comes back to you. So we try to work. We do work very honest, and we care. And I think people figure that out, and then they trust us. Now there are sometimes people just are very distrustful, and it's just not. So you're going to be working extra hard to sell, to make sure the deal closes, and also to build a level of trust that needs to happen.
And isn't it interesting that sometimes a client can be resistant because they're they're unfamiliar, right? For a lot of people, they don't buy 20 houses, so they're either buying one or two. And if you're within the first one, they're very nervous about getting a bad deal, so it's understandable. But isn't it interesting that sometimes you can have a client that is kind of resistant, maybe through the whole process, and then when it's over, if they don't literally apologize, there's still like apology and everything. Like, I'm sorry for giving you such a hard time.
I've had that happen many times. People have apologized, well, not really, because, people are just so, think about it. It's probably the biggest asset most people will ever buy. It's a very scary time, but we make it through. I remember when I first started, a woman put in an offer, and she put in an offer, the offer was accepted, and then she disappeared for 3 days. So I'm calling her, and I'm going to her job, and I was fairly new, so I was like coming to her job. And then she finally called me, and I was like, "Where were you? You got the offer." And she was like, "The whole process made me so sick and stressful. I couldn't answer the phone for 3 days." As crazy as that sounds, I'm like, that's when I realized that this is really people's livelihoods, and we can't fool around with that. We have to have a level of understanding and care that this is, for most, as I said, this is the biggest purchase they'll ever make.
This sounds funny that you said she disappeared for 3 days.
I was like, where is she? I was like, oh my God. I was like driving to her job. It was just,
Oh, that's funny. That's interesting. So for Young Realty, where do you want to go next? Like, what are your sights on next?
As far as my business, I want to continue to grow. I'm really careful on who I take on as new realtors. My first year, I think I turned 3 realtors down, and probably because I was a little nervous. I'm just careful what kind of energy I bring in here. So I definitely want to grow. I have a wonderful team now. Mostly women, and that's been wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and just grow, maybe not expand physically, but with more people.
That's great.
And personally, I love to use my real estate platform to do different things that I care about. Like I'm really into helping prison reform. I know that's like the big new political thing, but that is real in my life because
Understood.
I've had family members and I have kids that I've mentored, be incarcerated, and just helping them transition out. I want to do something like that. So I'm formulating it's kind of like not a side business, but maybe more of a nonprofit. And just continue to work with kids, because how I grew up, we had like the boys, and I'm a product of the Boys and Girls Club. And just making sure that I'm working in the community to make sure that these programs are in place so kids have something to do and are not just hanging out, whether in the streets or even home playing video games all day. It's just not healthy.
That's right.
So, I'm just really blessed to have this business that has put me in front of so many people, that now I have a platform that I can actually use my business to do these other things that I care so much about.
That's so awesome. I want to thank you again for being the first guest in my second season.
Awesome.
Man, you guys got a whole, what do we call it, a college course on real estate, but more on the importance of being yourself, building relationships, and having success. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Trade Secrets by Tripletote, and we look forward to bringing you more and more guests. Thank you so much, Shanyelle, for being on this show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Have a good one.